So I made a video about this 2023 R1250GS factory low, what I thought were the good points and what I thought were the bad points. Have I changed my mind 3,000 kilometers later? Not really. I will say the quick shifter has got a bit better. I still wouldn't use it between first and second to first like you can on a lot of bikes, but higher up the rev range and kind of, second to third, upwards and down, it's got better. I will admit it's got better. It's still a bit clunky. The only thing I'd say is I wonder whether BMW can't do much about that, and it's the nature of perhaps the flywheel of this engine. I don't know, but my guess is the flywheel. I stand by the rest of the things I said. What was my main gripe? It was the suspension.
See the roughness of this road. This bike can't cope. Its high-speed damping characteristics are very poor, I think. Now, as I say, dynamically, the suspension is well sorted. But I can't believe the price I have to pay is poor high-speed damping.
So do I think it's rubbish? I do. I think it's absolutely bloody rubbish. I think it's really limiting. The BMW engineers have said, right, we're going to give you a road suspension bias and a dynamic suspension bias, and they're your choices. And we'll let our computer make the decision about what the damping's going to be. And you have zero input into that, apart from choosing either road or dynamic. To me, one's too soft and one transmits too much feedback into your bars and the seat. Let's get things into perspective though. So what am I? I'm an 18.5 stone rider. I've said this is a factory low edition, stock tyres, no mods. That the low speed damping on road is far too underdamped, just all over the place, even on quite smooth roads. And the high speed damping is almost non-existent. In dynamic mode, its best feature is its low speed damping. Absolutely fantastic. I absolutely really like that. I bring out the positives where there are the positives, but then the high speed damping goes even more to pot, and the bike turns into a bone shaker unless the road is perfect. Now, when a road is perfect, you don't need damping. You could almost not have suspension. If you went in a straight line and never turned a corner and never braked or accelerated, you wouldn't need any suspension.
See, here I am here on a nice road. The suspension doesn't have to do anything. The suspension feels great. But the suspension would feel great on a bicycle on this road. This is where this bike is kind of unbeatable. Just the way you can, it's just zero effort to go around any bend of any angle at any speed. I mean, it's just wonderful for roads like this. You can place the bike wherever you want, absolutely wherever you want, with zero effort. And changing course, like I would have had a course, then I saw that cyclist and changed my course. You can put this bike wherever you want with your hips. It's astonishing like that. And of course, I'm on a great road. And if you overcook a corner, if you've not been observing correctly, you really can correct yourself on this bike. Just, lean further and it won't complain. But it's incredibly easy to do. I absolutely cannot take that away from the bike. It is, what this bike is about. It's a delight to ride on a great road. I have to say, this bit of the road is not that bad, and I'm driving like a mild-mannered Clark Kent. And this thing is a blancmange. It's a blancmange. You would just like to be able to add a couple of notches of damping, not go as far as dynamic. So in low speed damping and in the dynamic mode and the road mode, the effect is completely different. It is. But in either of those damping preferences, the high speed damping is atrocious. You get everything. Get everything. Like, I'm not looking for Goldwing levels of comfort. I'm looking for control. That's what I'm looking for. I know this isn't a Goldwing or a 1600 GTL or a bike like that. I'm not, disillusioned about what I'm looking for. I wouldn't like a Goldwing. Like, you'd like it for its technical abilities and all that sort of stuff, but it wouldn't be my type of bike, nor would a 1600 GTL.
The standard GS Adventure, the front suspension travel is 210mm and the rear is 220mm. The low chassis GS Adventure is 158mm and 170mm. This is travel I'm talking about now. The GS Sports is 210mm and 220mm travel. So the GS Sports has a longer spring and it matches the standard suspension then of the regular GS Adventure. Then we've got the standard GS, which is 190mm up front and 200mm at the back. And my low chassis GS, which is the same as the low chassis GS Adventure. And I'm surprised at that. I thought the Adventure would be a little bit higher, but so the low chassis GS is 158mm front and 170mm back. So one of the excuses, or one of the reasons, if you like, that some people give is, oh look, you bought the low chassis GS, what do you expect? You've got a lot less suspension travel. I can't let that slide as an excuse, because that's an awful lot of suspension travel, even in the low chassis. Miles more than most road bikes have, miles more. So I can't give that away.
Here we are again out in the country. Yeah, dynamically the bike steers absolutely beautifully, absolutely stunningly. But it's a bit of a boat doing it. It's a real blancmange. I'm like, So standard road mode in the suspension is just is not enough damping for this road. So I change it to dynamic again. Dynamic, there we go. Right, now I'm getting it in the pants. Yeah, the high-speed damping now is chucking everything my way. The bike's low-speed damping is a bit more controlled, and that's great. But the high-speed damping is just chucking everything into my pants and through the bars at me. You wouldn't want to be riding this road for hours. It's just far too annoying to ride the bike like this. So do you know what I'm going to have to do? Change my riding style. I'm going to have to maybe go to road bias damping and chill out a bit. Back to road and just cool my jets and just decide ride a bit ride a bit smoother, ride a bit slower. But I was never a fast rider in the first place, so I didn't think I was pushing this bike. So now I'm back to a bit of a blancmange of a bike, and I just live with it. Now, I like comfortable suspension on a bike. You know, I'm an older guy. I don't want a big bone shaking around the road. So, I just accept that that's what it is then. It's for something that's super dynamic and controlled by 6 axes and stuff like that, though, I think it's a real disappointment. Especially so when my 2 other bikes can cream this bike on suspension on these sort of roads. An old 1995 Daytona and a 2018 CB1100 without any damping adjustment.
Now, that rear shock for that Daytona, it was made for me. It was made for my weight, and I said, look, I'm not going to take pillions or anything like that. So you could say, oh, well, you had a custom shock and all that sort of stuff. Look, it was 550 euros. You know how much these are, fellas. Yeah. And gals. It was 550 euros and a bike that's worth about 2 grand. And I can get an absolute perfect ride out of it. The front forks are KYB, settings for preload, compression damping and rebound damping. And I can get them perfect. I can get them absolutely perfect for a perfect ride on that bike. Miles more comfortable than this bike. Really? Yeah, really. A 1995 bike worth nothing. Anyway, what else? Well, look, I've got a CB1100EX there. That doesn't even have adjustable damping. It has these dual bending valves in the forks. What that tries to do is when your shock, the front forks change from low speed damping to high speed damping, it tries to cover up the transition or make the transition smooth so the rider doesn't feel it. So our high-speed damping is when we're going up, sorry, our low-speed damping is when we're going over undulations in the road and our suspension is changing, going up and down. Oh, no, I won't do that. Going up and down, going up and down. Yeah, I'll get that bit cut out. Going up and down across the undulations of the road. The suspension is moving slowly, so it's low-speed damping. In dynamic, this bike is brilliant at low-speed damping. Brilliant, I will say. High-speed damping is where we hit an imperfection in the road, whether it be some bump or pothole or a change in the road, sudden change in the road condition where the suspension is getting bashed quickly, hit quickly. High-speed damping on this bike is terrible, and it's terrible in both road rider modes, the road mode and the dynamic mode. When you switch to dynamic, the low-speed damping is brilliant. I just said that, didn't I? Yeah. But the high-speed damping is terrible. So in any rider mode, the high-speed damping on this bike is terrible. You get a certain type of road, you could be on it for an hour or two, and it's a really tiring bike to drive. It just takes over your mind. You're just getting far too much feedback in the road. Whenever you touch anything, you get it through the seat of your pants and through the handlebars. I'll give you a little story. A few months back, I went to the Triumph factory over in the UK, and I live in Ireland here. And of course, I had to go on a Triumph. I took my old 1995 Triumph Daytona. And normally when I ride my Triumph, I'm the same weight the whole time. The load never changes. I have the suspension set up the way I want it in terms of preload and damping and all that sort of stuff. But this time I had 20 kilos in the back. About 7.5 of that was my monster lock and chain. And when I was going through the Welsh mountains, I noticed the bike was a bit too springy on the rear end. The extra weight was dropping down the bike in the imperfections in the road and just coming up a bit too fast. I knew exactly what I needed to do as soon as that started happening. I nodded to the lads, pulled over to the side, got down on my hands and knees, 2 clicks of the rebound damping. Solved. Completely solved. Got on, next 600 miles of that journey, perfect. So I knew what was happening. and it was easy to do something about it. When you get an action on this bike that's something you don't like about the suspension, you can do nothing about it. It is whatever the algorithm the BMW engineers have decided. And I can hear a lot of you saying, oh, it's your weight, you see. Okay, there might be an element of truth to that, but this bike is rated to a 216 kilo load. So I'm not 216 kilos. Fucking watch it. Not yet. No, look, I said it was 115 kilos. So I've got 100 kilos capacity left on this. So blaming it on me being heavy is no excuse. The bike knows how heavy I am. There's my swing arm position sensor. When I get on the bike, it moves that sensor. That rod gets pushed up by the swing arm. It knows exactly my weight. So you'd think now the algorithm would be able to be adjusted. And that's there to set the preload. Perfect, perfect. I have no qualms with that at all. But it also tells the bike how much I weigh. It must do. Just by the fact it's taken a measurement off that. So it can also use my weight then to have an impact on that damping algorithm. Whether it does or it doesn't, I don't know. But if it does, it doesn't bloody work.
This bike doesn't like this road. I'm like somebody out the Magic Roundabout. I'm on a GoPro 11. I should have put my GoPro 4 on. You would have there was no image stabilization. You would have seen how bad this thing is. Bloody hell, this road, it could do with Enduro. Losing a bit of traction at the back end there. It's just the bumpy road. No, we're going to have to go to dynamic. We can't do that on road. Here we go. Oh. Stand up, yeah. Now, I'm not saying this isn't a bad road. You can drive across it fast on this bike, but boy, you pay for it big time. Yeah, you wouldn't want to be doing this all day. Your choice is to slow down. Actually, it's just to slow down. That is bloody awful. That is awful. Such an expensive bike should be able to make mincemeat out of this road. I'm not saying Luxo barge. I know it's two wheels and a rough road. I like this road and the sport mode on the Harley Pan America with its engine braking. I have to say the engine braking made a considerable difference on that bike, and I enjoyed that. Aye, sheep ahoy. And I know you might criticise me for being critical of the suspension of this bike, but I've come down this exact road on a Pan America and a Gen 3 Tiger and the latest Gen 4 Tiger, and it copes with it much better than this bike. Purely suspension wise I'm talking here now. Now I'm on a pretty good road here, but I put it into the road bias suspension, and even on this road, which Dynamic does a good job of smoothing out, on this road it's too much of a boat. I wouldn't like to do a full trip down a Cork. It's kind of like being in a slightly bobbing sea. You know, when I'm complaining about that, you know, up in the Wicklow Mountains, yeah, you're going all over the place. Here, it's a gentle bob, but it's not a nice feeling. It doesn't feel in control of itself. By comparison, I just came down this road an hour ago on a Touareg 660 with fully adjustable suspension front and rear, and it's much more controlled than this road mode here. You know, you can really control the chassis, but it kind of does mean, really, you have to ride it everywhere in Dynamic, or I do. You have to ride it everywhere in Dynamic. So now when you're in Dynamic, it's fine for a road like this, but you know, if you hit a join or a, you know, bad piece of road, you get it all.
So I'm trying to demonstrate here, that's my hand signal to say I'm in dynamic mode, because my GoPro and my helmet failed. Just to show how much transmission through, I'm just trying to show the tail of the bike, how much transition gets through the bike in dynamic mode. It's jiggery as hell. Yeah, terrible high-speed damping. So I change over into road mode, and I'm still up in the Wicklow Mountains. You just can't ride up in the Wicklow Mountains or any kind of, it's not a terrible road. It's just, though, it's far too bouncy, as I'm about to, as I'm about to say, yeah, look how bouncy it is. So, yeah, I'm just reinforcing what I've just been talking about all the time. Another feature of this bike as well that does something odd. You're going along a road that's fairly smooth, but it's made of a certain type, a certain road type, maybe slightly gravelly, but not enough to tax the suspension in any low speed or high speed way. It just transmits a lot of the road surface through to the bike. It's almost like a slight vibration in the bike. It's difficult to explain it. It's not about the suspension, I don't think. It's like the chassis, the telelever and paralever. It just generally transmits a lot of road noise, if you like, through your bike. And it's something that the CB1100 or the Daytona, or in fact any bike I've ever ridden, I've never had a bike that does that at all. And I'm just wondering whether that the low chassis geometry of this bike has upset the geometry of the bike, and it doesn't like it. It's weird, but it's really tiring. Now, you don't get that on all road surfaces, but there's certain road surfaces you get it on, and it's pants. If you're on there for any period of time, it wears you out. It gives you a bit of a bloody headache. So that's three things where I think the bike has an issue. That transmission through the bike. 2, the total lack of control of damping on this bike from a user perspective. I know what BMW are trying to do. I know it's not a binary choice between dynamic and road. I know the bike is making decisions for me, and within dynamic it's doing things with the damping, and within road it's maybe doing things with the damping. I'm not suggesting it's a binary choice. What I'm suggesting is that decisions it makes for you are wrong, or it's incapable of making a better decision for you because of the poor ride it gives. So what you can do is, obviously, if you're finding the ride too much of a blancmange on this thing, you could change the rider mode and change it to dynamic, and then you'll get the dynamic bias suspension on the bike, and some other features as well. It'll increase the throttle sharpness, if you like, but it'll depreciate some of the rider modes, so it might back off the traction control and the ABS. So what I'd say is, ideally, if you want to keep all your safety features in their maximum configuration, just choose the left-hand button, the suspension button, to change from road to dynamic, rather than change the rider mode. What I did is I looked at the dynamic plus mode to see if I could mimic a rider mode where I had all the road-based setups for ABS and traction control, but I had the dynamic damping on the shocks. And you can, but it kind of defeats the purpose. If you're going to change a rider mode, you're going to press a button to change a rider mode to dynamic, but with the safety features turned on. You might as well just press the suspension bias button on the handlebar instead. Is there any more good news? Yes, there is. Someone made a great suggestion in the comments, and sorry, I really should have looked up your name. Someone made a great suggestion in the comments. Use your Enduro rider mode, just the standard one, not the Enduro Pro. And I did, and it does make a difference. What it seems to do is control the rebound, especially on the rear. I'm not sure about the front. It's much harder to tell on the front on rebound, I always find. But on the rear, well, I do anyway. On the rear, the rebound, it seemed to have the rebound in much more control. It's almost like an Enduro mode. It's expecting that rear shock to get compressed a lot more than it would do on the road. And it's controlling the damping. It's adding some more damping and controlling that rebound. If that was dynamic and that was road, I would say the Enduro rebound settings, somewhere like here. It is biased towards the road end, not the dynamic end, but it's not as bad as road. So I found that quite helpful on very poor roads. But you are turning off ABS and traction control again, or turning off some element of them, as long as you're okay with that. So I could use Enduro mode. Let's say my damping bias there is in road, you can see it on the left there, but if I change to Enduro mode, there we are, and I look at my damping on the left-hand switch gear again. Yep, the damping, you see it on the left there, it's changed to Enduro. So that does affect the damping. So that's something you could use on a dry day. As I say, you are having some features cut off. If we want to have a look and see what that is, we can just go to Enduro Pro. If we go into the menu and look at Enduro Pro, we can see what the setup is. Driver mode pre-selection, Enduro Pro configuration. So by default in Enduro Pro, the engine throttle map is set to road. Okay, that suits us. What were the options on that? Well, we had road, rain, or dynamic, but road is the default for Enduro Pro. If I look at the traction control, that's the lowest I can have it. Traction control and wheelie suppression. By default, it would be an Enduro Pro. So we don't want that either. Whoops, went a bit too fast. ABS for off-road use. But Enduro Pro, we can't go any lower than that. We can't go any lower than the setting that's in the Enduro mode. Otherwise it would have been even more aggressive with the ABS. You can see the description there. So you can't configure it up any better in Enduro Pro. We can't recreate that rider mode and to keep that suspension bias setting, which is a bit of a shame. So we're as well just using Enduro if I want to get that Enduro suspension bias. So that's quite nice on a rough country road. So that's not really a solution on a wet road or rainy day, but then in a rainy day, you're possibly in rain mode anyway, you want the suspension to be very compliant. The reason why there's a lot less damping on your front and rear end on a rainy day is they really want your tyre to be in contact with that tarmac, so they don't want this thing over damped at all. So if you're taking it real easy on the open road while it's raining, you can possibly get away with it, live with it a bit more, that soft damping. So again, I'm saying, look, rain mode, we can almost forgive it for being underdamped, you know. Any more good news? Well, yeah, lots and lots of people are putting in the comments, it's the low chassis version, that the regular GS doesn't do this. So what I'd say is, if you're thinking about buying a GS, take one out for a test ride. If you can, buy the regular chassis version. Lots of people are saying they've had both, and it's definitely the low chassis that the suspension isn't as good on. And there's a lot of people on the comment section who also said, I currently have both, and I can feel the complete difference between the two, the regular chassis and the low chassis GS. On another positive note, this bike obviously comes with the lowered suspension, but it comes with the lowered seat as well. Now, I find the shape of this seat quite comfortable. I've got both seats. I've got the regular seat and this low seat. So even if the low seat worked for you on the regular bike, I would consider that before getting the low chassis bike. As I say, it is quite comfortable. So there's positive news. Lots of people saying it's solely down to the low chassis version. Well, I think I'll call it a day there. It would be really interesting to see if I'd really like it if the new GS 1300 came out with traditional front forks. But being the telelever is a bit of a trademark for BMW, I doubt it. I imagine it's coming out with telelever. The spy shots seem to give the impression. But if the suggestion that I've seen is that they're going to have a kind of lowering system, a bit like used on the Harley Pan America, that might mean we can have a standard height GS with standard regular geometry with a lowering feature when you come to a rest. That'd be a great solution, which, if by all accounts, the standard GS doesn't have these problems I'm talking about, that would totally eliminate them. So that's good news. So I've ended on a positive note.
And this is where this bike excels. Look, I could have a game of chess while I went round that S-bend on the tank there. Yeah, you know, that's what this bike is brilliant at.